And welcome to High Level Living with Michael Porche. This is the show where we talk to all individuals in different industries, different spaces who are in different levels and capacities, but they are high level. That means not just financially, but physically, relationally, and spiritually. So on this show today, oh man, this one's a pretty legit one. I love this guy. This guy's name's Eric Moeller. He is a powerhouse in the short-term rental space, which is near and dear to my heart because it's where I'm at. He's based out of San Diego. My goal is actually to enter in his mastermind. That's a area where I actually want to be in, is to get in his mastermind and do some serious damage with it, because he helps people scale from where I'm at, say at 12, 20 to 100 plus. So that's where I'm looking to build our systems, our team, which I was really excited, obviously, to talk to him about it. But what I love about this show and what Eric talks about is it's not just about finances. It's not just about making a whole lot of money. He goes from a position where he was making a whole bucket load of money driving his BMWs, but he was also BMWs. Did you hear that? BMWs. But he was making he was over 80 pounds overweight. But he went from there to then exploding into a decision was, hey, I don't want to live where I want to live. I don't want to make this kind of money and not be able to have my health. I want to be surrounded by people who are killing it in all aspects of life, not just financially. So he made that decision, went to San Diego, started these new companies that kind of went that way. And then even just recently, as of 2 years ago, started this company that is doing something he's actually interested in, not just making a whole bunch of money, but being able to put his time into something that actually matters. So I'm excited to share with you what that is and how that's completely transforming the short-term rental space. But not only that, we talk about mindfulness and a little bit of his other journeys. So let's jump into our interview with Eric Moeller. If I'm saying that right, my bad. Welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on, Eric.
Yeah, of course. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, man. So getting right to it, we were just talking right before we came on air here about how you just recently came back from Tim. Oh my gosh, I'm losing
Kennedy.
his last name. Tim Kennedy. Thank you. Tim Kennedy's sheepdog response. First, just how was that? I know you're hurting on your back. What was that like? And then why did you even pursue something like that? Because I think that's really interesting. And for those of you who don't know, we're going to get right into it, but let's go. Tell us a little bit about Tim Kennedy as well.
Yeah, I mean, Tim Kennedy, there's a few people in this world that, I admire from afar that are like mentors of me from afar, if that makes sense. Tim Kennedy's one, Jocko Willink is another. And like these guys, like what's crazy is like I've been listening and reading their books, listening to their podcasts. Every time they have something that goes out in the world, I consume it. And what I find really amazing is like nowadays, it's so easy to connect with the mentors that you want to learn from.
Yeah.
And luckily, these two individuals, Jocko Willink is a retired Navy SEAL. He's the author of Extreme Ownership. That book changed my life, changed my business. It's one of our core values is extreme ownership. He has a leadership program where he teaches leadership to CEOs, to servicemen and women, to the everyday person. So I've gone through a bunch of his courses, which was a lot of fun. But Tim Kennedy has something kind of similar. It's called Sheepdog Response. They're based out in Austin, Texas. Tim Kennedy is a active special forces sniper. He's an active UFC fighter. Yep. He's a TV show host. He's a multiple business owner. Dude's just on a whole nother level.
He's a beast.
Yeah. And his energy, man, like as soon as he walks in the room, you just feel his energy. It just changes the whole dynamic of the room. Yeah. And, it's like pure alpha energy walking into a room, but he's got like the biggest heart too, no ego, zero ego, really cool. But this guy, like he's just doing some really incredible things in the world. He's like the true definition of the good guy fighting the bad guy on this planet. And like when the stuff was going down in Afghanistan a few months ago, he literally packed a bag and went to Afghanistan to retrieve and get our allies and U.S. citizens out of the country. Him and his crew got 80% of the I don't want to put that stat out there because I'm not 100% positive. A big high number of individuals he was able to help get out of that country. And now Yeah, he's just doing he's just an incredible person. And his belief is that he believes that the everyday citizen should have the skill sets to protect themselves, their family, and their community. Right. So this course was called the Protector One course. And it was a 3-day course down in Austin, half the day, and all of his instructors are SWAT snipers, special forces, Marines, Navy SEALs, just like the best of the best. And they're teaching you in combat stuff, like if you're walking through the parking lot with your family and, undesirable person comes up to, cause harm in some way, how do you protect yourself and your family? And how do you get out there, get away from this person as fast as possible?
Yeah.
And then they brought us to the gun range and taught us safety, a lot of cool stuff, man. It was just
that was really specific. If you could elaborate on that a little bit. So was there an actual situation that you could describe, not maybe for yourself, but a situation of what you would do if someone came up to you with a knife during in a grocery cart? Like, was there something that was said amongst that was like, okay,
oh yeah,
I would go that
dude.
way.
Yeah. The second day was, the first day they teach you a bunch of jiu-jitsu, grappling, stuff like that. That's made for the streets. Then the second day, they mix in that training with fake knives and guns. And it's like you're rolling with your partner and you don't know if they have a gun or a knife on them, right? And how to subdue that, how to protect yourself, all that. Yeah, I mean, the basic thing is if you have a chance to run. If you can't run, this is how you take care of it. And the idea is it's you or them type of training, if that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, to answer your question, it's, it's something that I think every single person should have. And it's more of, I'll leave it with this, is research situational awareness, right? That's essentially what they're teaching. Is most people, when they're walking around day to day, they have their heads down looking at their phones, right? They're sitting at the gas station filling up with their head down and looking at their cell phone. He's teaching, put the cell phone away, look around, ask questions, be aware of your surroundings so you can make a decision to get out of there if you need to protect yourself and your family. Right. But it was, I love putting myself in those situations for the physical side. I love learning from men and women like Tim Kennedy that are just a whole nother level of human being. And it's really humbling. I rolled with one of the main instructors there, Garrett, he was a special forces Marine reconnaissance, I believe, he lost both of his legs in Afghanistan. And he's the main instructor in the room. And he takes his legs off and he rolls with all the students. And I rolled with him. And it was the most humbling situation of my life, and it's cool that, I think for business owners, putting yourself in that situation is really important, leadership wise, being humbled, learning the whole thing. So it was a great weekend, man. I'm still beat up, but it's all good.
No, that's super solid. I love that. And I think just even in that, our whole theme, right? High level living is to be able to understand and just consider all those aspects of life. That you can bring to your table, not just in a financial freedom sense, but actually having that time to go and prepare for things like that.
It's important, right? Jasper was sharing a story on our podcast of just last weekend, part of his house caught on fire, and huge, major issue. And how he had the response internally to think through this high intense situation and make decisions to protect himself, his girlfriend, his family, to get them out of there, and then call, the firemen come out and do what they do best. Right. But being able to put yourself in that position to make decisions under high stress, most people just react and they kind of crumble.
Yep.
I want to figure out I want to put myself in those positions in a controlled situation so I can build the discipline to be able to make decisions in high stress situations. And
Absolutely.
That's why I went to Sheepdog.
That's good, man. I mean, so we would call those in the fire department, we'd call those slides. So we would train so many times to do it again and again and again, or even if it happened in real life, we would say, hey, let's pull out that slide that we learned from that one time. Let's apply it to this situation. I think that was one of the great things about being in a paramilitary kind of environment is you're constantly training for things that don't normally happen. So when they do happen, you already have a mindset that is prepared. You already know what to do, or you haven't at least a framework, right? And the framework is so important, but a framework for you to actually take action and move to the next level of whatever that level is. But that was something I think, you can apply not only in those emergency situations, which we're familiar with, but more in line of a business, like having a framework for sales, having a framework for a successful business. I mean, I think that might be a great way to kind of segue into it, but maybe we can start a little bit about, what does your current business look like? Where are you at now with that? What kind of frameworks might exist in your business today when you're kind of talking to us about what your business looks like?
Yeah. So we own two companies. We have our short-term rental educational company, which is called Overnight Success. And we have a couple of brands within there. We have the podcast, Get Paid for Your Pad, and the blog and all of that, the book under Get Paid for Your Pad.
Yep.
And then we have two other programs where one's called Legends X. It's a 90-day accelerator for existing hosts. And then we have a high-level mastermind for short-term rental CEOs that are running anywhere between 50 and 400 short-term rental units, buying and operating boutique hotels, things like that. And we create some really incredible experiences around that. That company we've been building for about 2.5 years now. And that came off the back of me running a large short-term rental management company here in San Diego. Yeah. And recognizing that there was no education. There was really I'm talking 4 years ago, the short-term rental industry and the online educational space for this was completely different from where it's at now. Now it's like if someone wants to learn short-term rentals, there's so much to learn from, so many incredible individuals to learn from, right? Yeah. So we created that to help hosts really develop from what we call the hectic host to the short-term rental legend, someone who's the CEO, scaling a hospitality brand that really impacts and connects the world. Yeah. Right. And that's been our main focus. And we've grown that. We're growing the team over there and just really focused on how to bring in A players that are tied to the mission of what we're doing and understand the bigger picture of what we're building here. And it's been incredible, man. It's been one of the greatest learning experiences I've ever been through to build a team to build this from nothing. And now I have this incredible team that's leading the vision of what we created 3 years ago is unbelievable. It's a blessing to lead that. And then we have a new company that we just launched called Free Wild, where we're acquiring land and developing out tiny home and experience-based short-term rentals all throughout the country. So we just got our first project here in Southern California. And the goal is to have about 6 more projects by the end of next year. Wow. So kind of going back into the real estate development, which is my background, and then running it as a high-level hospitality brand.
That's good. So I definitely have a question for that. I'm probably going to dive into it a little bit here, but before we dive into, because I know you have a project that you started in Idlewild, but before we dive in there, what is your background? So how did you get to where you were in thinking 3 years ago? What does your real estate development background look like? Yeah. What did you do professionally before if that's what it was, what were you doing then or beforehand before you really started diving into the short-term rental space and the short-term rental management company?
Yeah. So I grew up in New Jersey, right outside of Manhattan. So I grew up in a town called Kearney, which is in between Newark, New Jersey and Jersey City. Yeah. 2 biggest cities in New Jersey, right? So blue collar town, rough area, real area. It was awesome. I loved every bit of it. But, we grew up in a blue collar area. We never had money. Just, you always worked for what you needed, right? Or what you wanted. So I grew up in a construction family, ever since I was a kid, working on job sites with my dad, my uncles, cousins, the whole thing. So learned everything from concrete to foundations to building, every part of the, residential building side I was involved in. And got into, when I was 16 years old, I went to a pretty rough high school in North Bergen, New Jersey.
Yeah.
And it was a trade school, essentially learning construction and doing, regular schooling during the day. And I had a really awesome teacher who I'm still really good friends with, Frank, who gave me Rich Dad Poor Dad. Because at that age, I was like, man, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I knew how difficult construction was. And I was like, I want to make money. I want to control. I want to make money. How do I do this? And he's like, hey, you got to own it. You got to own the business. You got to learn how to run teams and learn how to run a business. So he gave me Rich Dad Poor Dad, and that just changed my life, man.
What year was that?
I graduated high school in 2005. So maybe 2004-ish. Wow. I read it. Yeah, probably right when it came out, I think. Right around then. But yeah, from there, like the story was Frank got me into the carpentry union because I decided I wanted to get into real estate. I wanted to buy real estate, fix it, flip it, own it, the whole thing. So he's like, hey, you have to continue to learn how to renovate these things. So he got me into the carpentry union. I was doing carpentry at a high level while I was studying real estate investing at night. So on the job sites, I'm reading and listening to cassette tapes and stuff like that, CDs and all that stuff. And by the time I was 18, I bought my first renovation.
Get some.
Dude, and this was like during the time of like 100% financing. They were just giving anybody money, right?
Yeah.
So we bought that, lived it in the basement, renovated it, flipped it, made a ton of money.
When you say we, who's we?
Me and my dad.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So like he was a Teamster truck driver, and he would get home from work. We would renovate the property. When I get home from the job site, we renovate the property. I was living in the basement, taking care of this thing. And we flipped it, made some money, and we bought 2 more properties. And they were actually vacation rentals down in the Jersey Shore. And this was before Airbnb. This is on VRBO, Craigslist, the whole thing.
Yeah.
So that was my first introduction to short-term rentals, real estate investing. And then I have a whole bunch of, whole story here of like when the market crashed, how that affected us. We lost everything, how we turned that into a new business. And after that, I turned that into like a development company where flipping houses, buying apartment buildings, the whole thing for about 10 years. And I got burnt out with that whole model and got a whole nother story how I ended up in California. So we can go into all of it, man. But,
I love it. Yeah. Well, I do want to highlight maybe even from the position, not of how you went from like the crash to the development, which is we were spending time in 10 years, but maybe the development to how you ended up in San Diego and going into the short-term rental management space. Yeah. And then also, maybe that process and what kind of what skills did you bring along with you that was, you'd say, these are some top high level skills that really helped me really be successful in maybe changing the industry or just diving into this industry? Great question, man. I got to a point in my development company when I had all the wrong business partners. We were doing a ton of real estate, flipping a ton of properties. Yeah. We had anywhere between 20 and 30 properties going at any one time. So we had a ton going on, making a ton of money, the whole thing, but I was completely burnt out. I was extremely overweight, very unhealthy, wrong business partners, the whole thing. Extremely overweight. And, what is extremely overweight to you? I was about 80 pounds heavier than where I'm at now. Oh, wow. Yeah. And were you into martial arts then too, or was it kind of more of a newer thing? No, I've always been into sports and martial arts my entire life. But at that time, I kind of lost that because I was so focused on the wrong things. I was focused on just making money. It's just like, there was zero balance in my life, zero care for health. And, that health wasn't my number one core value or priority in my life. Right now, it's my health is number one, right? Yeah. Health is number one. Business is number 3. Right. My relationship with my girlfriend's number 2. Right. Because without those two, my business
Like, what's the point of doing all that? Without health, I'm not going to have anything else in my life.
Amen. That's right.
So yeah, to answer your question, man, I had an opportunity to stay interest in that real estate business to my old business partners, cashed out, left a lot of money on the table just to get out of this thing.
Yeah.
And I wanted to create a online based business that I could run remotely and just kind of the lifestyle side. And I went to a mastermind in San Diego, came out to San Diego, blown away. It was in February. I'm like, why am I living in Jersey when there's places like San Diego? And yeah, man, I went to this mastermind to learn online based businesses and marketing and the whole thing. And I was staying in an Airbnb for the first time. So I rented my first Airbnb here and I met the owner, and the guy was living in the front house with him and his wife. This was 7-8 years ago ish. Wow.
Okay.
Somewhere. Long story short, I found out that he was renting this property right next to the beach. He was living in the front house with him and his girlfriend or wife, running this property full time. They had 3 Airbnbs, little studios on this property. And it just blew my mind that this guy was able to live in San Diego for free. He was making a few thousand, whatever he was making money running these different Airbnbs, and he didn't even own the property. That was my introduction to rental arbitrage. And right then and there, I was like, hey man, I'm in here. I'm building this business. I'm just gonna rent up properties all throughout the beach and rent them back out on Airbnb. That sounds amazing. So long story short, I stayed in San Diego building that business, and there was a lot of ups and downs to that. But that was really the introduction, is my seeking of knowledge from experts, completely changing up my environment. I was like, hey man, I need to get away from these toxic people and surround myself with incredible human beings that are trying to be the best versions of themselves, so I can be the best version of myself, and then explore this new business model that, hey, I can run this real estate business from my cell phone. I don't need to be managing these construction flips and the whole thing. So that was really kind of like the introduction to San Diego, how I came out here, and I just left everything behind.
That is one hell of an introduction. That's amazing. I think just what you said right there is seeking individuals who already have the knowledge, and the expertise, and not only that, but who are bettering themselves.
Got it, man. Like, I see it, looking back, I'm like, man, I was surrounded by so many toxic people that all they did was look at why things wouldn't work, and were focused on partying and eating the wrong foods and just, the wrong conversations. And the moment I moved out to San Diego, started plugging myself in masterminds and investing all the cash that I just got from cashing out from my business partners. I started investing that in coaches. I started investing that in different masterminds. Smart. Half of the coaches and masterminds were not the right people for me, but it's introduced me to some of the network that I have here still in San Diego. Yeah. And I had a complete shift of mindset and just like focused on, hey, I want to be healthy. I want to feel good. So why can't let's just do that. So I hired the people to help me become healthy.
Dude, let's go.
Same thing with the wealth. I want to be wealthy. Yep. I want my grandkids to be wealthy. I want my grandkids to be impacted by the stuff I'm doing here today. Right. So I started investing in people who were wealthy and already doing it to teach me along the way how to do it. And then I just had to match all of that with consistent action. It's still to this day, every single day, you got to put that to action.
Yeah. You've probably heard this little quote by Tony Robbins. He always says it. Yep. Success leaves clues.
Dude, I love that quote. I was just about to say it.
Yeah. And that's the reality. It's really not rocket science. But I think the hard part for a lot of people to understand is that you have to take action, and you have to take action that is, I would say, where someone else has done the action before you and has done it right. Right. So, if you look at somebody like, hey, I want to look like that person. Well, let me go talk to that person and see what they did. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the issue is, I think the initiation, or just taking initiative to take that action. But obviously, it seemed like that habit was really successful for you, and really finding out your success, seeing where you're at, being able to grow you pretty significantly, in the last 5-7 years. where are you at now with it? I know you mentioned that, you got your two companies that, that you focus on, and you have a few products within those different companies, from the learning, the mastermind, to the development company with Idlewild. But in terms of like rentals and stuff, do you have like quite a few rentals that are really supporting your lifestyle now? Or is that kind of, or is it more like the business side of things is supporting your lifestyle? I mean, where do you put more attention in order to support your lifestyle of being able to focus on health, on your relationship, and all that?
Yeah. I mean, this was a perfect design, but I decided right before COVID, obviously we had no idea COVID was coming, but literally a month or two before COVID and all the lockdowns, that's when Jasper and I decided to go all in on the educational company of Overnight Success. Nice. We had just completed this incredible event down in Cartagena, Colombia. And it was just like, it was incredible what we created. And my property management company at the time was getting to a place where I just wasn't excited about it. Growing, it was a lot of money. But we were doing things that it wasn't fulfilling. It wasn't fueling me. Right. Yeah, it was like we were running a lot of studio and 1-bedroom apartments in downtown Chicago that it was really just kind of a heads in beds, making money type of business, which is great. But I wanted to get into what we're doing now with free and develop out, these incredible experiences all around the country. So couple prior to COVID, I decided to get out of the management business, and my business partner at the time, who I'm still really good friends with, he's running the company, he's buying hotels, running hotels, the whole thing, killing it. He took that business over. I went all in with Jasper on Overnight Success, and then a month and a half, 2 months later, COVID hit and just locked us all down. Wow. So we put all the focus into growing Overnight Success. We figured, we almost filed bankruptcy, the whole thing. And because the world stopped turning, which is crazy. And we recognized like, hey, for us to stay in business, we have to help other people stay in business. And when we went real heavy into consulting and helping bigger companies understand how to pivot in the, in this new COVID era that we were going through. And then that turned into us creating Legends X, helping smaller hospitality company or hosts develop into hospitality companies. So when it comes to to answer your question, when it comes to what we're focused on, it's, Overnight Success is our company. That's our lifestyle. That's what's, fueling what we're doing in this world. And then FreeWild, which we just launched a couple, about 6 months ago, is this brand new company that we launched. So Jasper has a handful of investments around the world that he runs independently. That's outside of our business. I'm all in on Overnight Success and FreeWild. In FreeWild, as of right now, we have 4 active cabins on this one piece of property, and we're getting approvals right now to develop 15 additional cabins. And then the goal by the end of this year is we're going to put a fund together and acquire 2 more properties that will have anywhere between 15 and 30 units per properity.
Wow. There you go.
So that's a new model. That's the new focus.
That's awesome. So, going right into it, I know that this is located in Idlewild. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Awesome. So I know you really love there. You used to vacation there a lot. It's pretty close to San Diego.
Yep.
Beautiful little mountain town. Somehow feels like it's kind of like a still underground, quaint space, but it's got a lot of arts, culture, I guess good ice cream is what I hear. Beautiful views. Right. But something I wanted to, I guess, ask about, because this is what I do in my focus and in my practice, is I like to buy properties based off of, certain metrics, and I stay focused on the goal of my metrics and focus on those numbers. I'm a really data-driven individual, but I believe it's Strawberry Creek Village. Is that the project called?
Yeah. So we bought Strawberry Creek Village, and that's going to be the first site of FreeWild. So we're going to rebrand it, redevelop it, the whole thing.
So can you walk me through, and you may have already alluded a little bit to this already, but can you walk me through the decision-making process of that? Because I feel like that making such a massive decision and being able to build a lot of units in that space, I'm assuming it holds a lot of emotional value to you, but at the same time, there's also a data maybe driven type of model for that as well. Can you just walk me through some of those challenges, and as well as like what you're looking at. And that's,
yeah. As far as like why we decided to buy that.
Yeah. Like, and why there?
Yeah. So this is a big part of what we teach in Legends X. We have the VOS system, vision, operation, scale. Yeah. And before we go into even like scaling company and focusing on even dollars, we focus on the vision of the company. What is it that we're actually building? Why are we building it? Who are we serving? How are we serving them? Right? What is the ultimate goal? What we call our North Star? What is the ultimate goal of our company? Are we doing this for cash flow? Are we doing this to sell one day? Are we doing this so our grandkids can, see it and hold it one day and experience it one day?
Yeah.
So like a lot of the vision work to me is really, really important. That's something I learned throughout the years of like starting these businesses, getting involved with the wrong people and, the wrong investments, the whole thing. I never really had a vision other than I want to make money. Right. Yeah. And that's great, but that's not necessarily a vision, right? Yeah. It's like, what are we actually building? So Free Wild, I started building that right before COVID. I started creating this vision of Free Wild. COVID hit and it got real, man. I'm like, hey, my business can disappear in a moment. I have zero control over this. Like no one saw this coming. So at the end of the day, if I had to build something that's true to me and my lifestyle and what gives me energy, what would that be? And I got super clear on Free Wild, right? And what we're creating with that vision. With that said, Idlewild, California, it's 2 hours from San Diego, 2 hours southeast of LA, an hour from Palm Springs. So it's a perfect little area. We used to go there, and we still do. We used to go there every other month to go hiking and just disconnect and chill out. Small little town, disconnect from all the things. So we loved that area and I wanted a property there. And I was planting the seeds to locals up there, the realtors, the investors of what I was looking for. Like, hey, I want to buy some land so I can develop something awesome. Tiny homes, tree houses, something.
Yes.
And this popped up, man. It was the second property we looked at. A hotel popped up there, but just didn't work. Then this came up on board. And dude, the decision factors and like going back to how we started this podcast, surrounding yourself. There's a famous quote of like, you are the total sum of the 5 people you surround yourself with, right? Yeah. That you spend the most time with. Well, I surround myself with some really incredible people doing some really incredible things. So when this opportunity came up, it was in the town that I wanted to be in because it was close to my heart. It was this property that I was aware of and had so much potential to tap into what we want to do with this vision that I created. I spent nearly a year building this vision. So when I told everybody about it, I told everybody what I want to do, what I want to build. So when it popped up, I introduced it to our now financial partner. He already knew the vision. He knew what we wanted to build and he wanted to be involved. So he jumped on board and funded the purchase and the development of this project. And now is going to seed Free Wild for us as well. So the decision factors, there was a lot that came. It wasn't just a dollar and cents, decision. It wasn't just, this property, shoots off a 15% return. So let's just buy it. Right. It wasn't that. It was, this is fueling this vision of building this, globally recognized brand. And this is the start of it. And it's perfect location. I know the location. It's close to my heart. And of course the numbers worked, right? We knew that we can pay our investor a certain return, a very modest return he was happy with. We knew that with our management on there else and what we can do to that property, we can increase the revenues by 30%, which we did in the first 45 days.
Wow.
And we knew that by doing some rough numbers, if we added 10 to 15 additional units to this property, the amount of returns that we can generate cash flow wise, and then the equity of the property just shoots through the roof. So it was a perfect storm, man. It just like, we were patient. We built that vision. We told the right people about the vision over and over again. So when the opportunity came up, we were able to execute on it. So
that is so rad, man. I think that speaks so much more volume because I feel like what we often forget about, right, is, and especially me too, this is something I'm a big culprit of. but I'll think about numbers a lot and data wise. And because in the game, yes, we're in this to make money and do business, that kind of stuff. And we can get in that a little later. But at the end of the day, man, if you don't enjoy what you do, and if you can't get behind like something meaningful that you can attach it to, it just becomes another job, you know? And it's like, I'd rather have the amount of time that I have on this earth to be able to invest in something that not only is able to contribute to my life and what I really want to truly invest in, but ultimately I want to be able to enjoy the things I'm investing in order to provide that. And I think there's so much space and room for that across the board.
Dude, like talk about the honor and privilege that we have to make those decisions. Most people do not have the ability to even think about this. They're in survival mode, right? Just in to put food on the table and a roof above their head, right? That's real life for most people on this planet. And that was most of my early childhood, right? Of how I grew up, and my entire community was like that. And I just like by reading the right books, asking the right questions. I wasn't the best student. I didn't go to college. I barely made it through high school. But the one thing that I did a lot was being curious and asking a ton of questions to the right people. It would, annoy some people, but then the right people would give you the info, right? It's an honor to be able to take a step back, and a privilege to take a step back and say like, hey, what do you actually want to build? And I just told 2 stories about 2 companies that I left because it wasn't aligned. We were making a ton of money in both companies, but the first company, I was super overweight, drinking a lot, eating the wrong foods, depressed, hanging out with the wrong people. But hey, you got a BMW and you're making a lot of money. Yeah. Oh, actually, money doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Right. Now I moved to California. I get super healthy, still making some decent cash with this business, but honestly, it's just not aligned with what I want to do in this industry. I can grow this to 500 units, but man, it's not fun. It's not the people I want to serve. It's not the assets I want to work. And now 2.5 years later, we're in the spot building this vision, and we got a lot of work to do, but man, it's a hell of a lot of fun. And
yeah, dude, actually, you're putting that work towards something. You're like, dude, you look back and you're like, yeah, I built that. I had my hand in that.
Exactly.
Way different. So there's this guy, there's 2 thoughts are coming straight to my mind, but one is the adverse effect of just maybe chasing money. And maybe this is a bad example, and I'm so glad I forgot his name because I don't want to call this guy out. But he's a big dude, and maybe you'll even know him just because like of that alone. But he's a big dude. He probably has the most expensive house in Tampa, Florida. And he's a real estate investor, but I look, and this house is amazing. It's beautiful. He came from nothing. I think he actually grew up. No, it was in New York. I think it was Long Island, small little house. Didn't have anything, but like he grew up, made a lot of money. He pretty much worked the opposite of whatever their parents did that was bad. He wanted to be able to provide that for his kids. So his parents beat him. He doesn't beat his kids, right? His parents had no money. He wanted to have all the money. But I look at a guy like that, and although he's probably enjoying himself, I don't know the guy. I'm being probably really judgmental with the thoughts I have that are coming to my mind. But the dude is extremely, if I can say this, overweight. And maybe he likes it like that, and he smokes, quite often. And maybe he likes it like that. And that's fine. To each his own. If you want to live your life like that. But in my life and my thought process, in the same way I think it is the same for you, that is not living like to your fullest. And that is not considering your health at all. This dude he's having trouble walking around at times, and like for me, I don't want to have trouble walking around. I want to be able to, just as much as I want to be financially free to be able to choose what I want to do, when I want to do it, with whom I want to do it with, and have faith where I want to have faith. But the same way, I want to scale mountains. I want to go out there and be able to wrestle around. I want to play with my kids nonstop, right? Like 100%. I want to be able to use this one body that I was given to be able to do as much as I possibly can. And I feel like you can relate. And I don't mean to go on that 100%. Tangent, but
dude, and I'm sorry to interrupt. That's important to talk about, right? And that was a big realization I had was if you want to be financially free, if you want to grow, it depends on like the audience and who's listening. Some people want to develop like a lifestyle business. How do I get a couple of investments that just pay me enough to where I don't have to worry about bills? We're not, balling, but it's like, we're good. We're traveling the world. We're having fun,
dude.
Like, that's amazing, right?
That's what it's about. I mean,
that's cool. Then other people want to build generational wealthy companies, things that impact their downline, right? And it's like, whatever it is, without your health being your number one focus, you need energy. You need energy to lead teams. You need energy to build companies. You need energy to attract in the abundance that you want to create. And it's like, I learned that the hard way, man. I was drinking. I wasn't working out. I wasn't playing sports. It's like all the things. And I was, I was 300 pounds. And I'm like, dude, it's not the same thing now. Like I said, and this comes from studying Tony Robbins and going to all his events. He has something called the Wheel of Life. Have you done that?
I haven't. I've only been to one event of his, but I haven't heard that one.
Yeah, so you could just YouTube it or Google it and you'll find it, the Wheel of Life. And essentially the idea is like you look at all the elements of your life, your health, your wealth, your career, your relationships, your contribution to the world, all of that. And you rate it based on how are you doing right now on a 1 to 10. You rate it 1 to 10. And then your health might be a 6 or your wealth might be a 2. And then the next question is, well, what do you need to do to bring that to a 10? Right. Yeah. And the goal is, and this is something that I do I do it twice a year, every 6 months. And I started recognizing, I'm like, man, if my health is not dialed in, all this stuff I want to create, running 2 companies is not easy, man. And doing what I want to achieve is not easy. If I don't have my health dialed in, all this other stuff's not going to align. Right. Yep. And my entire team believes in that. Those are the people I'm attracting in. So when I talk about A players, man, like these individuals are extremely talented at what they do, but they have the energy to play all out all the time. And you'll notice when the individuals that are drinking a bit too much, not getting 8 hours of sleep, not focused on their health first, you start recognizing that their production starts dropping, their energy starts dropping, their connection to the team starts dropping. And that affects dollars at the end of the day. Right. So it's like people can force their way through life. I know plenty of very unhealthy CEOs, but they're unhealthy in every aspect of their life. Yeah. It's not just their physical, it's their relationships, it's their team, it's like their money. They're making a ton of money, but a ton of money's going back out. Yep. That's unhealthy. It's like, it's a lot to do, man. It's a lifestyle change, but it was one of the greatest things I've ever done. And it's impacted my business and my life in ways I can't even explain. Man, no, there's so much good there. Yeah, I mean, and I think just taking a moment just to emphasize on that Wheel of Life right there, just because the reality is, and I don't know if it was Socrates who said this, and this is just one aspect, and it's talking about the physical aspect, but it was, oh man, I'm going to butcher it, but bring it in such, or in like-minded, or in like the thought of it, he was saying, pretty much woe to the man who has not been able to feel what it is like to be strong. And it was not talking like man, woman, this and that, but it was really in the aspect of being able to live in a body that is just in pristine condition. I believe it was Socrates. I hope I'm not, bashing this too much, but he was a guy who believed in physical fitness. And just in that quote alone, I think it applies to a lot of different areas, not just in a physical sense, but financially too, of course, spiritually, and as well, relationally, dude, so yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. I was going to say, like, something just popped up for me too, is like going back to my story of going through the carpentry union and like studying real estate investing, because I knew I wanted to be in a position of owning real estate and developing wealth, the whole thing. When I was sitting on those job sites, it's not, dude, it's super hard work. I mean, hard work, firefighting that's hard work, man.
At times.
Yeah, at times. Yeah. I mean, you put the effort in, right? And it's like carpentry, commercial construction, that's hard freaking work.
Yeah.
And while I, in between lunch, I'll never forget this moment. I would bring books with me. I would sit by myself eating lunch when all the guys are having beers and just, talking about whatever they talk about. I was sitting by the corner reading books, and I was reading Who Stole My Cheese? Is that the book? Who Stole My Cheese?
I haven't heard of it.
Oh yeah, it's a classic, man. And something like that. I might be. I haven't read that in years, but I was reading that book, and one of the foremen came over to me, and he was a suit, and he came up to me, and he's like, "I've never seen anybody read on this job site, and equally, I've never seen anybody read a book like this." He's like, "You don't belong here." He's like, "Keep doing what you're doing, but keep looking up, keep punching up." Right. And I was like, cool. Yeah, I was like an 18-year-old kid. Right. And I was like, oh man, this is awesome. The reason why I bring that up is like, you look at in that book, I remember that moment. And I remember what I was reading was look around you, the people that you're surrounded by. Are you inspired by their life and their choices? Do you want to be, can you see yourself being them or being like them? Look around you. And this is the other quote, right? You are the total sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yep.
And I remember him saying that and him walking away and looking at the people I was surrounding myself with. And I'm like, man, I love these guys, but I do not want this life. I do not want it. And it goes to, I'm bringing it back to what you were just saying is you look at, choose the individuals you want to learn from and you want to be inspired by. Most of the people that are running incredible companies making, they have financial freedom, they have incredible relationships, all this stuff. They have their life, every aspect of their wheel of life dialed in. Their health is dialed in. Their relationship with their partner, life partner is dialed in. The relationship with their kids are dialed in. Their contribution to life, the whole thing is a focus. It's not just about grinding and making money. Because I know guys like that, and it's a constant battle for them to hold these pieces into play, right? So it's like, just make the freaking decision every single day to play at that level, and stuff starts clicking, man. It takes time, but it starts clicking. Yep.
That's good, man. That's good. And it takes time. It definitely does take time. But I think the biggest thing too is not giving up, because a lot of times a lot of people will just want that immediate satisfaction, and knowing that it's going to work right away. But man, if you just have that mindset of, hey, I'm going to keep at this, I'm not going to give up, I'm not going to expect anything in return necessarily immediately, but I'm going to put in the actions that are going to lead to a return. I think that's so important just to keep in mind. I think about it in firefighting when I was trying to become a firefighter, because it was very competitive. But at the same time, I just saw the people who didn't give up end up getting it. And I think it's the same thing with success. As long as you're learning and applying what you're learning and, taking action, man, it'll be good. Just keep your focus there.
You got to be patient, man. You got to be patient with it. And it's,
what are your thoughts and ideas about, I guess, mindfulness and meditation? I know you spent some time traveling and being outdoors, and you really love that's a big part of your life. But I kind of wanted to ask, how does that all? Maybe that's a too loaded of a question, but how does that all play together? And I guess what are your thoughts on mindfulness and meditation in that space?
Yeah, I agree. Dude, I love these questions, man. Like a lot of times I jump on podcasts and we're just talking about short-term rentals and occupancy rates and blah, 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 which is important to know. But it's also like, this is a big part. And this is what we teach in our programs as well. It's like, you got to have all of these elements and focusing on all these elements. Because if you're trying to become financially free, or if you're trying to be a leader, lead other human beings and build a company, and you don't have your shit together, and apologize for my language. If you don't have your shit together in your life, you're never going to be able to lead humans to be the best that they can be, right? And like build incredible products, achieve financial freedom. We're in the hospitality industry, right? And it's like, if we're not delivering world-class experiences to people 24/7, our businesses are failing, right?
Yeah.
And we have to be dialed in on so many levels as leaders to be able to create the things that are everything we want to create is possible. Like, I don't know if you heard in today's news, is like Elon Musk is trying to buy Twitter, right? And like this man, freaking crazy. He's trying to buy Twitter. This man is also putting people on Mars, and like he's got like 6 incredible different companies doing all this stuff, right? Yeah. He's not the healthiest individual, and he talks about that. His relationships are a mess. His health is a mess. But he's able to achieve some really incredible things in his business, but at the cost of everything else, right? So, you know, like and I'll get to your question here in a second. I think the biggest thing here is like you have to decide like what is important to you and what's the reason for you to be here. His reason is so freaking big to colonize Mars.
Yeah,
which
I know.
Is crazy.
That is insane.
And now he's taking on freedom of speech with Twitter and like all this other stuff. And it's like he's sacrificing all these other things in his life to achieve those goals. If you want to play at that level, play at that level. That's not the level I want to play at.
Nope.
You know, it's not, I care about my health. I care about my relationships, my family, I care about balance. I care about like chilling on a Sunday and just barbecuing, relaxing. Like that's valuable to me. So mindfulness is super important, and I'm nowhere near an expert. I'm a freaking amateur at best when it comes to understanding mindfulness. But my girlfriend, who I live with, she runs a company called Pause Breathwork. And she teaches people to become breathwork facilitators, but she also has an app called Pause where she helps people overcome anxiety and focus through breathwork. Right. Yeah. So it's a practice that we do every single day. And it's a practice that anybody can do is literally just sitting, pausing, and doing breathwork and being with your thoughts. Right. Wow. I think it's one of the most important things that we can do in our lives, especially as leaders, is calming ourselves down and getting to a place where you can respond versus react to life. And I think most people are reacting to life, and it's like, I talk to clients all the time that I see it. They have the ability to crush things, but they just can't get out of their own way. Yep. And it's like, instead of carving out time to have thinking time and journaling, instead of time to go out in nature and go hiking or surfing or just go for a walk around your block, we spend that time in our cell phones. We spend that time on Netflix. We spend that time at the bar. And that stuff is just pushing down everything. And eventually it just burns out and comes out in negative ways. Right. Dude, yeah. So I think, for me, mindfulness is everything. It's a practice that I'm still trying. Meditation can be challenging for me at times. That's why I do breath work, because it's a very active thing. And you get to similar states. And I do it multiple times. I did it right before this podcast. I'll do it right before our finance meeting, because I hate finance meetings. And I can't walk in there with that energy, right? I'm the leader. I can't walk in there with that energy. So I get to a place where I can now step in with the energy that is going to be beneficial to everybody on that call. So
when you say breath work, what are the actions? Because I have the same issue when it comes to meditation. I have a hard time sitting down and not thinking of everything I need to do. But I will say the things that's when I think of breath work, it's always helped me just counting how long I'm breathing, and 100%. Then just counting how long I'm breathing out. But that's all I'm doing, as I'm just focusing on one small thing, and allows my mind to kind of be at ease and be at peace. And then also at the same time, like there's definitely a wholesome feeling to it. But what is it like? Is that similar, or is that something? Yeah, no, dude, 100%, man. Like there's levels to it, of course. Like I just recommend anybody who, yourself included, just check out Samantha's app, which is called Pause Breathwork. She has so many different elements. She has so many different elements to it. And, we've done 2-3 hour long breathwork sessions, and it's a godlike experience, man. It's hard to explain. Yeah. But you can get to a psychedelic, godlike experience through your breath.
But for the average everyday person, someone to start right now after this podcast, it's even the Navy SEALs have something. I forget what they call it. I think it's called box breathing, where in high tense situations, they have to make quick decisions. And think about it. Navy SEALs, you turn a corner, there's a firefight, there's explosions. Right. You got all this stuff going on. How do you make a decision in high tense situations? Most people can't. Like when I was rolling with Tim Kennedy the other day and his guys, like I was
no big deal.
Dude, I was freaking out. Like these guys had their hands on my mouth. They were like grinding their elbows in my face. And I'm like, I couldn't think. And I just wanted to scream. And then I had to take a moment to like, and just that slowed it down for me. So like a very easy breathwork pattern, just get into mindfulness, just to like drop in. I would recommend I believe it's called the box method, where Navy SEALs breathe in for 4 seconds. And at the top, they let go for 4 seconds. They breathe in for 4 seconds. They breathe out for 4 seconds through their nose.
Oh,
just that
already.
Just that. And it's like
crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy what you can do with your breath. And there's a lot that you can go into. I would recommend checking out,
Is that it right there?
That's it. Pause. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Those of you haven't heard, pause, breath work.
Yeah. It's life-changing, man. Also, and to leave on this too is Tony Robbins has something called priming. Tony Robbins priming. So if you go on YouTube and search Tony Robbins priming, or if you go on Spotify, Tony Robbins priming, it's about 15 minutes long. And he does this thing where you do a few minutes of breath work, you do a few minutes of gratitude, and then you do a few minutes of visual goal setting.
Yeah.
And I do that Samantha and I do that every single morning. We wake up, we go right into it.
I think my wife may have done it with me once. She's the one who brought it up that we should do it. And I did it. And I was kind of giving one of those like, what is this crap? Like totally lame. But now I'm like, man, dude, my wife can be pretty awesome. I'll say that. But something maybe to check out a little more, to get refocused. I would recommend.
Of course, I'm not trying to plug Samantha's app, but that's good. But also, if someone just wants to dive into it real quick in the morning, afternoon, or at night, just jump on YouTube and follow Tony Robbins. He's got an audio called Priming, and you do.
Yep, I remember that. Yep, that's it.
Arms, and I do it every morning. And every morning I have resistance to it. And then the moment I start, I kick it off. I drop in. So
that's good.
Highly recommend it.
Definitely all about shameless plugs, by the way. So all the shameless plugs we can get, that's what I'm talking about. So we'll definitely be talking a little bit more about or at least putting it up on the show notes for your program, for your girlfriend's pause breath work. But also want to kind of get to these, real touch base real quick on some of these questions that we like to talk on. But one of them is, hey, is there a book that you recommend that, everyone's like, dude, you should check this one out, whether it was just this year or something that you feel like, hey, man, this one changed my life. If you haven't heard of this one, you got to get out.
Yeah. Dude, I'm a book nerd. I'm always reading a new book. So I'll give a couple. One that completely changed my life that I think is really relevant for your audience is Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel.
Psychology of Money.
It's a game changer. I read that thing and I reread it the moment I was done with it. I recommend it to everybody. I've read it 4 or 5 times, and I've committed to reading it at the beginning of the year and halfway point of the year as well. Absolute game changer. Psychology of Money, Morgan Housel. For the hospitality hosts that are listening, like short-term, I know you're in short-term rentals, so like everyone who's in the hospitality space, short-term rental space, The Marriott Way by J.W. Marriott. I just finished that, and man, talk about inspired. And it talks about it, man. Like they built an incredible company.
Yeah.
And the guy had a heart attack he had 3 heart attacks by the time he was 45 years old. And then he recognized, oh, I got to start taking care of my health, because without my health, all of this is nothing. Right. Yep. And he talks about that in that book, which is crazy. Yeah. Yeah. Those 2 books. And then Extreme Ownership, like Extreme Ownership by Jocko.
Yep.
Jocko and Leif. That, if anyone's struggling to implement what we're talking about, and like, not even at a high level, but just implement it, you need some change or you need some discipline. Yeah. That book will change your life. So those are my go-to.
I love that. That's awesome. Well, for what else? What would you say is some high-level success habits that really attributed to your success?
Yeah, man, I think it's a little bit of what we talked about, right? Surrounding myself with the best people I can find. I literally moved into something called the Epic Entrepreneur House here in San Diego, and I lived with 5 other startup entrepreneurs for 3 years. So it's like, who are the 5? You're the total sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So success habit number 1 is surrounding myself with absolutely incredible human beings on every aspect, not just ballers who are making money. Yeah. I'm talking about a full human, Yeah. Number 2 is dialing in my health, man. Like I started with getting 8 hours of sleep, drinking a gallon of water, and then following a certain program, like cutting out processed foods, cutting out alcohol, cutting out all this stuff and looking at food going from entertainment to fuel, right? Like that just completely changed the energy for me to take on my business and lead, right? And then I think journaling is huge. Thinking time, like I have an hour a day where I go upstairs. I have a chair in my bedroom that looks out the window. There's no technology. I don't bring my cell phone. I only bring a notebook, and I sit for an hour a day and just think, what comes to me? How do I solve these problems? What questions do I need to be asking myself? Yeah. So yeah, I think that brings some value for sure.
Awesome. And how can people get a hold of you, or what are some things in terms of like your programs that you can offer them that would help better their success if they're listening?
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. I find me on all this social media stuff. I'm not a big social media guy, but I'm out there. Eric D. Moeller. And then, our company, overnightsuccess.io. You can find everything there. We're in the process of rebuilding that site, but you'll be able to find all the programs, everything that we have there, overnightsuccess.io.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Eric. Thanks for coming on the show, man. That was it was very, what's the word? Refreshing. Awesome. To be able to talk to an individual like you. So, I'm really excited about, us working with you in the future as well. And then just collaborating and doing some cool stuff.
Yeah, dude. And congrats on the podcast, man. You're really freaking good at this. And like I said before this podcast started, congrats on taking that big leap and going all in on your real estate venture and what you're doing now. It's we need to take those leaps of faith and burn the option of plan B and go all in on option A, make it work, so man. Congrats on that, dude.
Thank you.
I'm excited for you guys.
Thank you. I appreciate that.